Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students, I hope you all are fine. As you know students, we have started class 10th biology chapter number 10 gaseous exchange. In the previous lecture we have discussed about the gaseous exchange in humans and we saw how the gaseous exchange takes place in humans. We saw the respiratory system that is present in humans for the gaseous exchange. And that respiratory system contains two parts, that is the air passageway and the lungs. In the previous lecture we have discussed the air passageway in detail and we saw it contains some parts. And the first part is the nostrils that open into the nasal cavity, and through the nostril air enter into the nasal cavity and the remaining parts. The nasal cavity then open into the pharynx and the pharynx then open into the larynx through the glottis. Glottis is the small opening that is present between the pharynx and the larynx. Larynx then leads into the trachea. Trachea is the windpipe that further divide into two branches, that is the bronchi. Bronchi further divides into the bronchioles in the lungs, and these bronchioles further divide into the alveoli. Alveoli is the sac-like structure that is present in lungs, and it contains the respiratory site. We can say that the gaseous exchange takes place through this sac-like structure. Today we will discuss the second part of the respiratory system, that is the lungs. Today I have fourth lecture video and the topic is lungs, and we will discuss this topic lungs in detail, and we will see how the gaseous exchange takes place through lungs and what is the function of lungs and where the lungs are present. These lungs are on the page book page number 6. Let's see the lungs and we know that the lung sphere is present in the humans in the thoracic cavity, and this lung sphere is protected in 12 pair of ribs, and this pair of rings contain the intercostal muscles that relax and contract, and below the lungs there is a diaphragm, that is the muscular structure that also relax and contract. Let's see this pair of lungs. The pair of lungs that has a spongy elastic organ contain the left lung and the right lung. Left lung is slightly smaller than the right lung because it provides space to the heart. As the left lung is smaller, then it contains 2 lobes and the right lung contains 3 lobes. There is a heart which is present between 2 lungs. This heart receive deoxygenated blood from the body and provide this deoxygenated blood to the lungs through the artery. Then the lungs convert this deoxygenated blood into the oxygenated blood and provide this blood to the heart through the vein. This oxygen comes from the environment in the lungs, and the carbon dioxide come in the blood through the cellular respiration process. After receiving the oxygenated blood from the lungs, this heart provides this lungs to the whole body through the aorta. As you know students, the lungs enclosed by 2 membranes, which are outer pleural membrane and the inner pleural membrane. And between 2 membranes there is a fluid-like material that provides lubrication to the lungs, and due to this lubrication the freely movement of contracting and expanding takes place, through which the gaseous exchange process takes place. In the gaseous exchange process, CO2 comes from the cellular respiration process when the breakdown of food takes place, and the oxygen comes from the environment. This CO2 is removed from the body and this oxygen enters into the body, that is provided to the blood. This process is reversed in the plants because plants receive CO2 from the environment and release oxygen in the environment. So the gaseous exchange in the plants takes place through some structure, that is stomata, lenticels, air space that is present between the mesophyll cells. As we see, the carbon dioxide comes from the breakdown of food in the cellular respiration process. In the previous lecture, we discussed the cellular respiration process. There is the animal cell diagram. This cell contains the organelles that is floating in the liquid-like material, that is the cytoplasm, and the important organelle is the nucleus that control the all cell. We can say that it is the control center of the cell. There is there are also some organelles which are the endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi bodies, and the mitochondria. Mitochondria is also called the powerhouse of the cell. It is the important organelle, and the process of cellular respiration takes place in this site. And here is the mitochondria structure. The mitochondria contain two membranes, and in the inner membrane there is the F1 particles. These F1 particles contain enzymes that convert the proton into the ATP, and CO2 is released. When the CO2 is released from the cellular respiration process, then this CO2 is moved into the blood, and when the blood reaches into the heart, then heart provide this blood into the lungs, and lungs exchange the gases like CO2 and in oxygen, and oxygen rich blood then provide to the heart, that provide this blood to the whole body through the aorta. Let's see all processes through the diagram. Now we will discuss the whole process through the diagram. You can see here there are two lungs, and it is the left lung and it is the right lung. And we have discussed that the left lung is smaller than the right lung because it provides space to the heart. You can see here there are two membranes in the outer covering of the lungs, that is the inner pleural membrane and the outer pleural membrane, and there is a flood-like material that is present between two membranes that provide lubrication to the lungs, and the lungs can move freely through this. Students, you can see here where the lungs are present. The lungs are present in the chest cavity. We can say that this thoracic cavity. It is the thoracic cavity where are the lungs present. When the air moves in, then the ribs are raised. You can see here the ribs are raised, and the diaphragm moves down. And when the airs move out, then the ribs muscles are lowered. You can see here there is raised ribs, and there are lowered ribs, and the diaphragm moves up. When the air moves out, then the diaphragm moves up, and diaphragm is present below the lungs, and lungs are protected by the 12 pair of ribs. You can see here the ribs which protect the lungs, and when the air moves in, the lungs expand and the ribs muscle raised, and the diaphragm moves down. When the air moves out, the ribs muscles are lowered and diaphragms move up, and the muscles of the lungs contract. So we can see here the both diagrams. So students, let's see the whole process. There are two parts of the respiratory system, that is the air passageway and the lungs. As the air moves through the nasal cavity into the pharynx is the common opening for the food and the air, and at the end of the pharynx there is a glottis, that is the opening, and then the pharynx leads into the larynx. After the larynx there is a trachea, that is the windpipe, and here are C-shaped cartilage structure, and then the this trachea is divided into two branches, that is the bronchi, and after entering into the lungs, this bronchi divides into bronchioles, and this bronchioles further divides into the alveoli, and alveoli is the sac-like structure and respiratory site where the gaseous exchange takes place. We can see here there are branches, we can say that the capillaries that surrounds these sac-like structure, and this is the site where the gaseous exchange takes place, and when the deoxygenated blood comes from the heart to the lungs, and then enter into the alveoli, and in the alveoli there is oxygen present in this sac-like structure, then the gases diffuse, then oxygen comes into the blood, then this oxygenated blood comes into the heart, Then this heart provide the oxygenated blood to the whole body. And after that the carbon dioxide comes into the this structure, and through this structure this comes back into the environment. So this was our respiratory system, and we saw that how the gaseous exchange takes place in human. It was our long question, and it was very important long question. So I hope you will understand. Take care. Allah Hafiz.